A fast-paced montage begins with a shot of the White House at night, transitioning to a red downward arrow on a stock market chart, then cutting to a chaotic scene on the House floor, and finally a split screen of President Trump and military personnel. Hello and welcome back to Kristen News Update, your daily source for unbiased, deep dive breakdowns of the stories shaping our world. I'm Kristen. Tonight, we have a packed show with developments that affect your wallet, your safety, and the very history of this nation. The numbers are finally in, and inflation has dropped significantly. But is it enough to save your household budget, or is the White House taking a premature victory lap on a track that's still broken? We are digging into the disconnect between the data and your daily reality. Plus, a countdown to crisis. Millions of Americans are staring down a massive healthcare cliff. Congress has effectively left town without a deal, leaving 22 million people bracing for a premium shock on January 1st. We'll explain how we got here and what happens next. We also have major breaking updates on the Brown University and MIT shootings. Police have identified a person of interest and are drawing forensic links between two terrifying events. And finally, President Trump announces a new symbolic warrior dividend for the troops. But where is that money actually coming from? And why are tensions in Venezuela pushing us toward the brink of naval conflict? We have a lot to cover. Let's dive into the details. Graphics appear on screen reading inflation falls to 2.7%. The visual shifts to clips of President Trump speaking at a podium, followed by detailed charts from the Labor Department showing the trend line. We start tonight with the economy, the single issue that decides elections, defines presidencies, and dominates dinner table conversations across the country. The Labor Department dropped a bombshell report today, revealing that inflation fell to 2.7% in November. Now, on the surface, this sounds like fantastic news. It is significantly lower than economists expected, and Wall Street certainly liked what they saw, with markets closing in the green today after a tumultuous week. But as always with economic data, the devil is in the details. It is important to note that this data collection was delayed due to the recent government shutdown, and some independent experts are warning that this dip might heavily reflect temporary holiday discounting rather than a permanent stabilization in prices. President Trump's victory lap. President Trump, however, did not wait for the nuance. In a fiery primetime address last night, he immediately seized on this 2.7% figure as definitive proof that his economic policies are working. He doubled down on a familiar and aggressive narrative that he is currently fixing a disaster left behind by the previous administration. He explicitly referred to the current economic landscape as the mess he inherited, blaming President Biden for looting the Treasury and driving prices up through reckless spending. His rhetoric was combative, claiming he is bringing the economy back from the brink of ruin and saving the American dollar. But here is where the messaging gets complicated and politically risky. For months, the White House has been in a transition period, pivoting between blaming the old guard for failures and taking credit for any new wins. Today, we saw a definitive shift in that strategy. It's Trump's economy now. In a remarkably candid moment that may haunt the administration later, National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett admitted today that we have crossed the political Rubicon. When asked by reporters at what point ownership of the economy shifts from the previous president to the current one, Hassett acknowledged, quote, "It's a Trump economy now." He argued that while they are still filling the deep hole left by Biden, the current trajectory belongs to the Trump administration. This is a high-stakes admission. By claiming the economy to take credit for the 2.7% inflation rate, the administration also claims the frustration that millions of Americans are still feeling regarding the cost of living. The disconnect, data versus reality. And make no mistake, that frustration is palpable. Despite the headline news of low inflation, a new NPR PBS News Marist poll shows a stark, almost historic disconnect between government data and public sentiment. The poll reveals that 61% of Americans, nearly two-thirds of the country, say the economy is not working for them. Why is there such a gap? It comes down to the difference between inflation rate and absolute price. While the rate of inflation is slowing, prices are not dropping back to 2019 levels. They are simply rising slower than they were before. President Trump has claimed he is bringing prices down very fast, citing specific commodities like groceries. However, fact-checkers and market analysts point out that while some volatile items like eggs have come down from record highs hit earlier this year, the overall cost of living remains significantly higher than pre-pandemic levels. Rents are up, insurance is up, and services are up. Furthermore, a Quinnipiac University poll released today shows that 59% of Americans now hold President Trump responsible for the state of the economy. The blame Biden strategy has a shelf life, and if voters don't feel relief in their bank accounts soon, the Trump economy label might become a political liability rather than a trophy. Shots of the U.S. Capitol building with empty hallways. Graphics appear. ACA subsidies expire December 31st. Text overlay emphasizes 22 million impacted. Moving from the health of your wallet to your physical well-being, we are tracking a developing crisis in healthcare that is set to explode on December 31st. That is the drop-dead date when critical enhanced subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, ACA, are set to expire. Without these subsidies, premiums for millions of Americans will skyrocket overnight, in some cases doubling. We are talking about 22 million people who rely on this aid to afford their insurance. The Capitol Hill jailbreak. So what is Congress doing to prevent this shock? In short, they went home. Ryan Nobles, reporting from Capitol Hill, described the scene today as a literal jailbreak in the House of Representatives. Lawmakers rushed to the exits to catch flights for the holidays, leaving town without passing an extension for these subsidies. The House did pass a narrow, Republican-backed health care bill late yesterday, but it was a symbolic victory at best. Notably, it did not include the subsidy extension. That bill is effectively dead on arrival in the Senate, and everyone knows it. This inaction means that unless a miracle deal is struck in the frantic first few days of January, millions of you will open your mail to find significantly higher insurance bills for the new year. Trump's Unaffordable Care Act rhetoric. President Trump is playing defense on this issue by going on the offense. In his speech last night, he rebranded the ACA as the Unaffordable Care Act, a slogan we can expect to hear on repeat as we head into the midterm cycle. He is framing the expiration not as a failure of his administration to secure a deal, but as a battle against gigantic health insurance companies and Democrats. He claimed that the current system was created solely to make insurance companies rich and that the Democrats are the ones demanding premium increases to protect their corporate donors. The White House strategy seems to be shifting toward a populist message, promoting health savings accounts, HSAs, and association plans for small businesses rather than bolstering the ACA exchange. But critics, including healthcare advocates and hospital groups, argue this leaves the most vulnerable, those 22 million depending on subsidies, out in the cold come January 1st. The political fallout here could be massive. Democrats are already poised to make healthcare the central issue of the upcoming midterm elections, arguing that Republicans allowed costs to spike on their watch. Moderate Republicans are nervous too. We saw 4 of them break ranks to sign a discharge petition in a desperate last-minute attempt to force a vote. But it wasn't enough. The clock has effectively run out, and the bill is coming due. Police tape surrounding a building, aerial shots of the Brown University campus and MIT campus. Photos of the victims appear on screen alongside police sketches. We now turn to a breaking update on the tragic shootings that have shaken the academic community in the Northeast. For days, we have been following the intense manhunt for the gunman who opened fire at Brown University, killing 2 students and injuring 9 others. Today, we have a major breakthrough. Person of interest identified. 3 senior law enforcement officials have confirmed to NBC News that investigators have identified a person of interest. This is a significant step forward after a week of dead ends and false leads, including one man who was detained and released earlier this week because his alibi checked out. But the story gets darker and much more complex. The MIT connection. Authorities are now actively investigating a forensic link between the Brown University mass shooting and the targeted murder of MIT professor Nuno Loureiro. Professor Loureiro was shot and killed in his home in Brookline, Massachusetts on Monday night, just 2 days after the Brown attack. Initially, these two events seemed unrelated. One was a chaotic mass shooting at a university building. The other was a home invasion targeting a specific individual. However, forensic evidence is beginning to draw a line between them. Jim Kavanaugh, a veteran law enforcement analyst, explained that investigators are likely looking at ballistics, specifically comparing the lands and grooves on the bullets found at both scenes. If the ballistics match, we are looking at a single shooter operating across state lines, specifically targeting the academic elite. Who was Professor Loureiro? The profile of the MIT victim adds a layer of mystery to this case that has authorities on high alert. Professor Loureiro was not just any academic. He was a world-renowned expert in nuclear fusion technology and plasma physics. We aren't talking about standard nuclear fission used in reactors today, but cutting-edge fusion research, some of the most brilliant and high-stakes physics work being done in the world. Police have not commented on a motive, but the specific nature of his work and the seemingly random violence at Brown are now being viewed through the same lens. Is this a personal vendetta against academia or something related to the professor's sensitive work? This investigation is moving fast. A joint operations center has been spun up in Providence, bringing together state, local, and federal assets. They are scrubbing video footage, cell phone data, and toll records to place this new person of interest at both scenes. We are expecting a press conference from authorities potentially later today or early tomorrow, and we will bring that to you live as soon as it happens. The exterior of the Kennedy Center at dusk. Footage of construction workers installing plaques on White House grounds. A clip of Trump speaking about the beauty of federal buildings. While the president tackles the economy and health care, he is also making permanent moves to reshape the cultural and physical landscape of Washington, D.C., literally cementing his name into the Capitol's history. The Trump Kennedy Center today, the White House announced that the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, a living memorial to JFK and a cultural institution in Washington, will be renamed to include President Trump's name. It will now effectively be the Trump Kennedy Center. President Trump reacted to the news today, saying he was honored and surprised, though critics note this move came directly from his administration's directives. His justification? He claims he saved the building. In his remarks, he stated, "The building was in such bad shape both physically, financially, and every other way, and now it's very solid, very strong." This follows a distinct trend we've seen recently, including the renaming of the Institute of Peace and the ongoing construction of a massive new ballroom on the White House grounds, which is replacing the historic East Wing. It signals a desire to leave a physical mark on the presidency that outlasts any single term. Partisan plaques on the South Lawn. But perhaps the most controversial move is the installation of what is being called a presidential walk of fame on the White House grounds. These aren't just standard historical markers. President Trump has installed plaques that detail his version of past presidents' accomplishments and failures. Reporters on the ground describe the text on these plaques as highly editorialized, written in the distinct, combative style of his social media posts. They criticize his predecessors and frame American history through a specifically MAGA lens. Even some Republicans are privately and publicly rolling their eyes at this. They worry this culture war focus is a distraction. As one GOP strategist put it to us, Renaming buildings doesn't lower the price of milk or fix the healthcare system. They want the president focused on the bread and butter issues that will decide the midterms, fearing that these trolling tactics designed to annoy Democrats might actually alienate the independent voters who just want a functioning government. Footage of U.S. aircraft carrier groups at sea, followed by clips of soldiers reuniting with families. Graphics appear. 1,776 Warrior Dividend. A map of Venezuela and the Caribbean highlights the naval blockade. Finally, we turn to the military and a brewing international conflict in our own hemisphere. The Warrior Dividend. In his address to the nation, President Trump announced a surprise holiday bonus for the troops, which he is branding the Warrior Dividend. Every U.S. service member is set to receive a one-time check for $1,776. The symbolism of the number is obvious, referencing the nation's founding year. The administration says these checks are already on the way to an estimated 1.5 million troops, with a total price tag of roughly $2.6 billion. But where is this cash coming from? This is the question Pentagon officials are scrambling to answer. According to reporting from defense correspondents, this isn't new money printed by the Treasury. It appears to be repurposed funds that were originally allocated for basic allowance for housing, BAH, and other cost of living adjustments. Essentially, the administration is taking money intended for monthly housing support and repackaging it as a patriotic lump sum bonus. While the cash up front is always welcome during the holidays, some military families and advocacy groups are asking if this will leave a gap in their housing budgets down the line. It's a rob Peter to pay Paul scenario that has fiscal hawks concerned. Escalation in Venezuela. Meanwhile, that Warrior Dividend comes as U.S. troops are seeing increased action in the Caribbean. Tensions with Venezuela are reaching a boiling point. Following President Trump's imposition of a naval blockade, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has ordered his navy to escort oil tankers leaving port to protect them from U.S. interception. This is a game of high-stakes chicken on the high seas. We are seeing a massive U.S. military buildup in the region. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, and daily flights right up to the edge of Venezuelan airspace. The U.S. has already carried out strikes on what they call drug boats, 26 attacks so far. But the messaging is shifting. Initially, the White House said this operation was strictly about stopping narcotics. Then, yesterday, President Trump suggested the blockade was about seizing Venezuelan oil as compensation. Now the objective seems to be regime change, forcing Maduro to step down. With Venezuelan warships now escorting tankers and the U.S. Navy standing by to block them, the risk of a direct confrontation or an accidental engagement is higher than it has been in years. We are watching this maritime standoff very closely. The camera returns to Kristen at the desk. The Kristen News Update logo appears on the screen alongside social media handles. It is a volatile time in Washington and around the world. From your healthcare premiums and the inflation rate to the names on our national monuments and the ships in the Caribbean, everything is in motion. As we head into the holiday recess, the big question remains, will the Trump economy deliver for the 61% of Americans who feel left behind? And will Congress find a way to fix the healthcare cliff before January 1st? We will be here every day tracking these stories so you don't have to. If you value unbiased, comprehensive breakdowns of the news that actually matters, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. I'm Kristen. Thanks for watching Kristen News Update. Stay informed, and I'll see you tomorrow.